You know, Brookings Papers is probably the single best source I look to for really contemporary, relevant research about economics written by really good economists. The Brookings Papers is, in my view, perhaps the premier location for really good, really relevant policy research.
I think people have not as fully recognized how much the Fed, and this does start in my regime in 2008, how far it's gone beyond classic budget. I think this is justified by the circumstances. Again, I'm not being critical, but we will need new doctrines and new thinking about how the central bank operates. And we'll have to ask the question whether or not these extra tools might help, for example, with the zero lower bound on interest rates and monetary policy as well.
If you care about macroeconomics, if you care about doing research that connects to the actual economy and the actual challenge that policymakers face, the best set of examples of that research that you'll ever see are in BPIA.
There is a thread through the literature on cost-benefit analysis using a valued statistical life, trying to say, well, what is the economic cost versus the death cost? What we're trying to say is that that's the wrong either or, that we can have, through disciplined use of non-economic NPIs, we can both reduce deaths and make room for the economy to reopen. And it seems like now is a good time to start.
The reason I chose to spend my career working on economic policy and trying to figure out how we can refine policy so that it helps more people is really because of BPIA.
The current crisis has accelerated, I wouldn't say it has generated, but it has accelerated a pre-existing trend towards deglobalization. And what I mean by that is, of course, all the sentiment against immigrants, against trade. But even if you abstract from these two, there is much less willingness now in many advanced countries to help developing countries. And we are at a point in time where developing countries desperately need this help.
When I was in the field of macro, I was just finishing my thesis, and all the major macroeconomists of my day, the important people, were all involved in the Brookings enterprise, and it was something we regarded as very exciting.
The Brookings Papers did for all those years, and I presume still does, is it extracted out of serious economics the essence of what it had to say to the policymaker.
If you're in public policy, maybe you're a grad student, maybe you're not a PhD, but you're a grad student, maybe you're a business student, maybe you're just coming to Washington to work in government because that's your calling and so on. The Brookings Papers, they're incredibly relevant, but they're also incredibly accessible. And I think that is one of the greatest, attributes of them and why they're such an important part of the policy scene.
When I was teaching, I would make sure that people would read the Brookings Papers as a way of understanding how what they learn can be applied. And that's precious. The quality of a paper comes not only from the author, the editors, but very much from the people who are members of the panel. And I was extremely impressed by this at the beginning. When I came in the room, the amount of feedback you got, which was tremendously useful, which led you to rewrite the paper entirely, actually.
I was so excited when, as a graduate student, I was first invited to participate in BPIA in the late 1970s. And whenever I haven't had a government job, I've always tried to be a regular contributor to BPIA. I know it's brought the best out in me. And if you're lucky enough to be invited to do a paper for the Brookings Papers, that will maximize the chance that your work will get visibility and will have a substantial policy impact.